Most people believe being cheap is the same as being smart with money. They think spending less on everything automatically makes them financially responsible. They hunt for the lowest price. They avoid paying extra for quality. They delay purchases. They hesitate. They negotiate every small cost. And on the surface, that sounds disciplined. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Being cheap and being wealthy are not the same thing. In fact, in many cases, being cheap is exactly what keeps people stuck. Because being cheap is not a money strategy. It's a fear strategy. And fear-based decisions rarely create wealth. Cheap thinking focuses on the immediate price. Wealthy thinking focuses on long-term value. That difference changes everything. A cheap person asks, "How can I pay the least right now?" A wealthy person asks, "What gives me the greatest return over time?" And those are two completely different mental frameworks. When you always focus on minimizing cost, you start training your brain to avoid risk, avoid growth, and avoid expansion. You become cautious in situations where courage would pay off. You protect small amounts of money instead of positioning yourself to earn large amounts. Let's take a simple example. A cheap person buys the lowest quality shoes because they are on sale. They feel proud for saving money. But those shoes wear out quickly, become uncomfortable, and need to be replaced. A wealthy-minded person buys higher quality shoes that last longer, feel better, and actually improve their daily life. The cheap person saves once but pays repeatedly. The wealthy person spends once and benefits repeatedly. This applies to almost everything: clothes, technology, education, health, even relationships. Another example is time. Cheap people waste enormous amounts of time trying to save small amounts of money. They will drive across town to save $5. They will spend hours comparing minor discounts. They will delay decisions because they are afraid of overpaying. Wealthy thinkers understand that time is more valuable than small savings. They optimize for efficiency. They invest in convenience when it allows them to focus on income-producing activities. They don't obsess over small expenses because they know their energy is better spent increasing income rather than shrinking lifestyle to the absolute minimum. Now let's talk about investing in yourself. Cheap people hesitate to invest in courses, coaching, mentorship, or skill development because it feels expensive. They focus on the price of the course rather than the potential return of the knowledge. Wealthy thinkers ask a different question. If this skill increases my income for the next 10 years, what is it really worth? That shift from cost to return is the mindset difference. Being cheap protects you from short-term discomfort. Being growth-oriented positions you for long-term opportunity. Health is another powerful example. Cheap thinking says, gym memberships are expensive. Healthy food costs more. Supplements are unnecessary. Wealthy thinking understands that energy, confidence, and physical presence directly affect performance and income. If you feel stronger, sharper, and more confident, you perform better. When you perform better, you earn more. The cheap mindset sees expense. The wealthy mindset sees leverage. And here's the psychological part most people ignore. Cheapness often comes from scarcity. It comes from constantly worrying that money will run out. That mindset creates stress. It creates hesitation. It creates small thinking. Wealthy individuals don't necessarily spend recklessly, but they spend intentionally. They know why they are spending. They attach money to purpose. Cheap people attach money to fear. And when fear controls your decisions, you avoid the very opportunities that could expand your life. This does not mean you should waste money. It does not mean you should overspend. It does not mean you should try to look rich. There is a massive difference between being strategic and being cheap. Strategic spending increases your earning power, your confidence, your efficiency, or your long-term stability. Cheap spending avoids discomfort but often sacrifices growth. Think about networking. A cheap mindset avoids events because tickets cost money. A wealthy mindset sees the potential of one connection changing an entire career. Cheap thinking says, what if it's not worth it? Wealthy thinking says, what if it is? One question closes doors. The other opens them. Cheap people often delay upgrading their environment, their workspace, their tools, their education, because they want to squeeze every last drop out of what they currently have. Wealth people upgrade when the upgrade improves output. They understand that better tools create better results. They are willing to spend when the spending multiplies. Another difference is emotional. Cheap people often feel anxiety when spending money, even on necessary or beneficial things. Wealthy-minded individuals feel clarity because they have already decided what money is for. When spending aligns with their goals, there is no guilt. There is no panic. There is no second-guessing. That emotional stability is powerful. It allows them to move faster and make clearer decisions. Being cheap also affects opportunity tolerance. If you are always trying to avoid loss, you will also avoid upside. Investing, starting a business, switching careers, launching a project, all of these involve uncertainty. If your identity is built around never losing money, you will stay small. Wealth requires calculated risk. It requires the ability to tolerate temporary discomfort in exchange for long-term expansion. Look at spending habits. Cheap people buy things based on price tags. Wealthy people buy based on value, return, and alignment with their goals. Cheap people say, "This is cheaper." Wealthy people say, "This moves me forward." Cheap people cut costs to feel safe. Wealthy people build skills to feel powerful. Here is the irony. Constantly trying to look financially disciplined by cutting every expense can actually shrink your thinking so much that you never expand your income. Wealth is rarely built by saving tiny amounts. It is built by increasing value creation. And value creation requires confidence, tools, health, skills, and strategic investments. So the real question isn't, how can I spend less? The real question is, how can I spend smarter in a way that increases my future? That is shift. That is the difference. That is what separates survival thinking from expansion thinking. If you constantly choose the cheapest option in life, you are training yourself to think small. But if you choose options that strengthen you, educate you, improve you, or position you better, even if they cost more, you are training yourself to think bigger. So ask yourself honestly, are you saving money, or are you shrinking your potential? Are you protecting comfort, or are you building capacity? Because at some point, the safest decision is not the smallest one. Sometimes the safest decision is the one that increases who you are becoming. Being cheap feels responsible in the moment. But wealth is built by those who understand the difference between cost and value. And once you understand that difference, you stop asking, how little can I spend? And start asking, how much can this multiply? So before your next financial decision, don't ask whether it's the cheapest option. Ask whether it moves you forward. Because in the long run, being cheap can keep you comfortable, but thinking bigger can make you wealthy.